Hot stuff. Have you ever made a business investment and it really did not deliver what you thought that it would? You've worked with someone, you bought a course, you bought a downloadable, or you bought something and you really felt let down with how bad it was, or that it didn't deliver the outcome that you thought that it would. You felt like that? Okay, cool. Me too. Let's talk about it. There is nothing worse when you spend money in something and you feel really let down. And then what starts to happen is you don't feel let down. You feel pissed, or you feel mad, or you feel really angry. And then what you do is you keep thinking back to the thing that you've purchased and how let down you felt. It's bad. It's bad. It feels bad when that happens, doesn't it? You know, I have felt like this before where I have invested in things and I felt really let down in the process. It's funny because I kind of will oscillate between I feel really let down by the person that sold me the thing and it was not what I thought that it would be. And then I equally feel let down, like I feel like I've let myself down. You know, there is this sense of like responsibility that I have taken and I'm annoyed. You know what I mean? Like I'm annoyed at myself. I'm annoyed that I've used my hard-earned money and I've bought something and it hasn't lived up to the expectation that I thought that it would. What we want to do though is a couple of things. And I want to talk about this because there's been quite a few conversations that I've had in the DMs from people. One recently where they're like, I didn't know the difference between this or this, or I feel like that I've purchased something, or I feel really let down. And even things that come up within like the sales process of dealing with people that want to work with me. And it's so interesting that in the process of them telling me that they want to work with me, they will also equally let me know that they feel really let down by an investment that they've had. And it's really hard in a situation like this to deal with as a consultant, because I think what can also happen when we are in this category is I think sometimes that when we start to feel a little inkling of this is a bad investment, we actually do something really interesting. Because I don't doubt that there have been people that have worked with me that haven't really had a great time. Or they have purchased something and they're like, this wasn't what I thought that it would be. I'm pretty sure it happens with every single person. Everyone that you look up to in business would have this. Your clients would maybe have this as well with you. And this is something that we are all going to experience. But because you are here to better yourself as an entrepreneur, today we are going to talk about that. And what we are going to talk about is taking self-responsibility when we actually purchase things and we feel like that we haven't got the outcome that we wanted. What we want to make sure is that when we feel like that the investment isn't giving us what we thought that it would, is that we don't just completely like detach. And what I mean by this is we feel then like if we feel like we are not getting our money, then all of a sudden we start to kind of it's like we almost cut off the energy. And we're like, well, I'm not going to invest in that anymore. I'm just going to turn up. It's like you almost will be like, well, I've paid this. I'm here. I'll just like sit and consume. But you're not open. You're not coachable. You're like, well, I'm not really receptive to the feedback. And then all of a sudden you start to feel yourself put like a wall up. You may get a bit contrarian. You may get a bit, I don't think that that's going to work. You may get a bit combative. And I've had this before. It's interesting, working with clients and sometimes towards, I think like the end of a relationship with a client, it sounds really dramatic, doesn't it? But like towards the end of a container, and especially if a client hasn't felt like they have maybe moved as far as they thought that they would within the process with you. Okay, they've come in with lofty goals. This is business. Stuff happens. Life happens. Stuff moves slower. Stuff moves faster. Shit changes, right? All the time. And what happens is they may feel like that they are not moving as fast, or the expectations of where they thought that they would be are not aligning with their current reality, right? And then what happens is they start to get mad. And again, they get mad with the investment and they get mad with themselves. And I've seen this where clients will kind of just detach from doing anything and they'll turn up to a call, but between the call, they don't really do anything else. And I'll be like, what's happening with this? And then they'll leave me on red. And then I know that they have just detached from the situation. And the problem is with this is you need to ask yourself and be really honest with yourself if you actually want this to work. Now, I'm going to be really transparent with you. Back in, when was it? Maybe like 2013 or 2014, around them. I was working with a business coach and they were good. However, they probably could have been better if I would have showed up with different energy. And what had happened, I actually ended up leaving the container early. I was working privately and I was just like, look, I'm not really having fun. Can I just bail? And I think because I was so young, I was in my early 20s, I kind of just like didn't really care. But it's interesting that I remember looking back to the situation and how like I got to a point where I was like, this just isn't working. And I had almost like put a wall up and then I was resentful about the money that I was paying. And what I needed to really ask myself, like if I could go back in time to this person, I would have said, even if you feel like the advice is not that exceptional, you in this moment can still choose to be exceptional. Like if you feel like that stuff is moving slow and this is annoying you, and I think in hindsight, like what I really needed, I had made a mistake of hiring someone that was helping me with my current business, but what I really needed was someone to help me expand online. And they may have done that if I would have communicated that, or they may have referred me elsewhere. But what had happened was, and I actually heard Alex Hormozi just explain this so succinctly. And he said, sometimes people don't want it to work because they want to prove the coach wrong. And when I heard this, it really like smacked me in the face. And I was like, wow, I've never heard someone just say this so succinctly. And it's so true. And I want you to think about this. Like, it's interesting when I look back at my past self and I was like, oh yeah, you just were like, yeah, this is just crap. It's not going to work for me. And then as a byproduct with me thinking that, my actions were reflecting that. And then guess what? That was happening. And I want you to think about this. How many things have you purchased and you have felt yourself just feel like that you disengage and it's just like a little switch. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. Yeah, this is really crap. And then how that thought influences the actions that follow through. And again, this is sometimes really confronting because why it's confronting is because now we are met with the self-responsibility that we need to have because this is entrepreneurship. And I say that because I think sometimes when we feel like that we partner with someone or we buy an investment, we may not realize, but what we're doing is we are kind of like giving that other person some of the responsibility for our business. We are putting that onto them when we really need to have that. When you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to, everything is your problem. Everything. Don't you love this? It's like you hire someone to do a job, they don't do it. Guess what? Your problem, because it's your business. And the problem is that when we partner with people and we kind of will lump our business onto them, where it's like, great, I'm working with you, you're going to do this. It's like then if we feel like that stuff is not working out how we want, we feel let down, but we feel that they've let us down. And then what starts to happen is the dynamics of that relationship change. And then all of a sudden we want to prove them wrong. And then we will lessen and lessen and lessen how much we are showing up. Because as Alex says, we don't want to prove that they're right. And he had gone on to say in this video that I had watched, he's like, I've worked with some pretty average people. But he's like, I have told myself that I want to be the best student that they have. Like I could have the worst coach, but I want to be the best student. And I absolutely loved this. And when I listened to this, it got me thinking about all of the times that I've then been like, well, hold on, this is a sunk cost. I'm just going to like jump ship early because I don't really want to stick around. And how I love that he is an example of the discipline to see things through. And this is why he is so successful. I loved hearing that because it got me thinking about all of the times that I've bailed from things early. I've done this before in fitness where I've gone and I've done a course and I haven't particularly liked it. And I've just spent longer at lunch or I've left like earlier in the afternoon because I'm like, I hate this. Like I technically didn't even really finish my crystal healing qualification because I was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like the room that we sat. There was really terrible like fluorescent overhead lighting. And I know some of you are going to be like, this feels insane. But I was like, we're doing a fucking crystal healing course. I want a beautiful setup. I want to be like sitting on the floor and I want nice smells and I want like beautiful sensory music and like we're in a classroom and I don't like this. And how, I feel like that it's interesting that when I heard this and when I listened to this episode, I could go all the way back to that situation and where I disengaged, and how it's so interesting hearing him say that he wants to be the best student, even if it's the worst course, and how that simple belief in how he does that shows up in everything that he does. And it really changed something in my brain chemistry to hear that, because all of a sudden I was like, well, hold on. Yeah, he's right. Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if I purchase something and it's not that fantastic, that's okay. What I can control is myself. And even if it is not the most fantastic course, I can be their most fantastic student. So what you want to make sure is that you are not so committed to proving that the thing doesn't work. And check yourself on this, right? Like, we have people in Give Good Email, everyone all of a sudden is like, well, self-paced courses are bad. I'm like, self-paced courses are fine. People just need to work on their discipline, or if they have a problem, just ask. And I think this is where sometimes we can have like a reluctance to do things, where it's like, it's so funny that people like, no one wants self-paced courses, everyone wants implementation. And I'm like, that's fine, but you may not be in a position to afford the implementation you want. So you're just going to have to suck it up and learn and do it yourself, right? So here is where we get to be the best student. What you may find in doing this is you may be like, oh, this is really interesting now. I actually feel like that this is now a discipline problem, because I feel like this is a bit boring and I feel myself disengaging. Or this feels really itchy and I want to like sit up and I want to go and do something else. And you have to practice sitting in that discomfort. Like, that's fun, isn't it? I felt this today, even when I went to record another podcast, and I was like, I want to get out on my back's a bit, so I'm going to go and get a coffee, self-care. And I'm like, sit your fucking ass down. You have another podcast episode to do. You can have that after that. And guess what? Here we are. So you want to be the person that squeezes every drop of value out of it. Get as much out of it as you can, and really be conscious of this little tipping point that you have where you just feel yourself disengaging. Because the problem is, I know people that have worked with some incredible people, and it's interesting, like the feedback that I've heard from them. And I'm like, that's really interesting that you've had that experience. And when this repeatedly keeps happening, and when people are like, well, no, it's self-paced courses, well, no, it's this. It's like, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. I don't think it's the course. I think that it could potentially be how you're showing up to the course. Again, this is why business is incredible. Best personal development experience, because now we get to deal with that. So I want to say that it doesn't matter how good you are at business, how good you are at making decisions. You are going to make investments that you feel let down by. You are going to do all of the research. You are going to get all of the recommendations. You're probably going to work with people before and have great experiences. And there is going to be something that inevitably is just not up to the standard that you thought that it would, or give the transformation that you thought that it would. That happens with all of us. What you need to make sure, though, is that you then don't become the reason that the transformation doesn't work, and that you don't cut things off too soon before it thrives. Now, I will also say, you want to make sure as well that if you have had repeatedly bad experiences, or if you have by chance invested in things and it just has been really, really, really crap, is that one of the worst things that you can do is to take all of those feelings and that narrative into working with someone different and put the timeline that you thought would have happened onto them. And what I mean by this is, let's pretend that you have invested and you've spent 2 years trying to do something because you have wanted to cut corners, or it's what you could afford, or you got sucked into some sexy marketing, or you thought that this person was incredible, whatever the reason. And then you finally find someone and you're like, okay, cool. You want to make sure that you are entering that relationship not with this, well, this has to work. This has to work. And I've been doing this for ages. You have to really check the energy that you then bring into it. And this is where you may find that your tolerance of like you problem solving or dealing with something becomes less and less and less. So think about the amount of times that you've then purchased a course and you're like, oh, this is shit. And then you just don't log back in again. Or you buy something and you're like, oh, this is crap. Because it's like, what starts to happen is your tolerance just lessens over time. And I think that, there are pros and cons to that. I think if we look at this in like under a dating lens, it's like, well, you want to have less tolerance because you want to make sure that you are not investing in something that is just not going to give you the outcome that you want. But we can look at this that, you don't ever want to go on a date with someone if your end goal is marriage. And like 10 minutes into the conversation, you're like, are you open to marriage? Is this something you want in 6 months? I've been burned in the past. Like, imagine talking to this other person like that with that energy. Do you think that that is going to get you your goal? Or do you think they're going to be like, holy shit, I can't deal with this? Because, again, I've had this before where clients have invested a long time. They've been doing something for a long time. And then they come to me and they'll be like, I've been doing this for so long. And if you can't make this work in a month, I'm going to be really pissed. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking magician. I can't help that you did all of this. The only thing that I can help you with is now. Okay. So this is, again, maybe a little bit of a self-responsibility episode. Remember, I've been here and this is why I'm telling you. And even hearing that, I thought that I had kind of dealt with this, but then hearing Alex reflect this back to me. Do you like how I'm talking like we're good friends? I was like, thank you so much for this realization. Thank you for that. I want to be the best student because I want to be the fucking best. And I know that you want to be the best as well. So ask yourself how you are showing up to the investments that you have purchased and where we are not being the best that we can be. Because at the end of the day, hot stuff, remember, it's also about when we invest, who we become, how we change, how we grow. And sometimes you may make an investment and it feels like that it has just not been up to scratch or what you thought would deliver. This is where we get to reframe this. And it's like, how good is it that my level of understanding is now at a point where I've invested in this thing and it didn't return what I thought that it would? But how good is it that I have upskilled myself to a point that I know what good is, that I can recognize what good work is, or I am so skilled in this now that I have an understanding where I know that I could deliver this better. That's a good feeling. That is a good feeling. So hot stuff. I love this. I love you. Have a sexy day. And guess what? What do I love you more than? I love you more than, okay, I love sausages, like a good sausage, not like a good sexy sausage. I don't know why. I've always loved them. I could probably have them for dinner every night with tomato sauce. And I know that some of you may be like, that is very surprising. I know there are surprising things about me. And a good sausage, I like them a bit overcooked, is one of them. Now, believe it or not, I've never had a Bunnings sausage. Now, we do have an international listenership. So I think Bunnings is Australian. Bunnings is like this big like tool and homewares shop. And they've got like a garden section and then they've got like home supplies and they have screws. Like they sell like everything. I don't like it. I just don't like it. People are like, oh, I love Bunnings. And I'm like, do you really like Bunnings? Like I can't say that it would be like my top 10 places to go. And then out the front, they do like a little sausage sizzle. And that they have like a little barbecue and they'll put the sausages on it. And then you go and you pay like, how much is it? Like $2. Some people are probably listening to this and they're like, this is not it. Because guess what? I don't go to Bunnings. So I'm relaying this back to you with my limited experience with sausage sizzles that I've never purchased at in a tool shop that I never go to. So you can get that and it comes in this like white bread and they put the sausage in it and then there's sauce. And then I think they may put onions on it and it comes in like a little, a napkin. I can't say that that's my ideal of a fun time, but I am open to trying it. I am open to trying a Bunnings sausage. So maybe we could go and do that one time. I would be open to that. So I love you more than our little future Bunnings date. What else do I love you more than? I love you more than the spaciousness of cash in the bank. I was looking at my business bank account and I actually don't think that I've ever been at a point where my bank account looks as healthy as it does. And this has taken work. This has taken quite a bit of work. I remember what year was it? It was like 2023? No, maybe it was 2022. Yeah, it was 2022. And it just, all this shit was happening. Shit was breaking left, right, and center. I was dealing with this like accountant and they were just not great. I ended up getting a fine from the tax office. Like all this stuff was just continually happening. And it was like a Friday night. It was really late. I got this fine in the mail from the ATO and I'm like, oh my God, my accountant didn't do something. And I remember ringing the ATO up and I'm sobbing. Like I'm like so upset. And she was so good. She's like, we're going to remove the fine. And I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. like it's not great when you hire someone to do something and they just haven't delivered. And I remember in that moment, I was like, yeah, they have hired it, but this is also my business. So I need to get my shit sorted. And I vowed in that moment that stuff was going to be better and that it just, like it had to be. So this has been something that I've been working on for a really long time. And the spaciousness of just having money in the bank, where if you have a quieter week, it's not the fucking worst thing in the world. You have a client that doesn't want to work with you again, it's not the worst thing in the world. You have someone that says no, it's not the worst thing in the world. You know, having money, obviously, the amount of ease and spaciousness that brings is incredible. And if you are not there yet, you will be. You just have to make sure that your strategy is not hope for making that happen, that you're doing something to make that happen. And you have to make decisions and really like stay on top of things. It's probably not going to happen as quickly as you'd like, but it will happen. And when it does, you'll find that it's just really quickly it's easy to kind of maintain that and kind of stay at that baseline. So I love this for me, and I love this for you if it's happening, and I love this for future you if it's not currently happening. I love you more than all of the little like grocers and beautiful stores that I live near. My friend recently renovated her home, and I went to visit her on Friday, and I was like, what do you want me to bring? And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, no, what do you want me to bring? She's like, nothing. I have everything here. And I'm like, oh, I hate that. You can't, I'm like, I don't like that. I'm bringing something. And she's a designer, and I'm like, I don't want to buy a designer something because like, I don't want to offend her. So I'm like, what could I get her? And I went to the grocer and I bought her some white tulips, a baguette, some honeycomb, so actual honeycomb, marinated baby figs, some beautiful tea, and some chocolate. And I think there may have been something else in there. I can't quite remember. And even the bag looked beautiful with the tulips coming out of it and the baguette. And I was like, I feel like I'm winning life today. And as I'm walking up the street and people are looking at the bag, and they were looking at the bag like, that's a good looking bag. And I'm like, it is a good looking bag. She loved the present. I love buying the present. And it made me think that next Saturday, I need to go and buy myself tulips and a baguette because I love the feeling of carrying that round. It did feel like I had my life together. Hot stuff. I've loved this. I've loved every minute of this. And I will see you on the next episode. Mwah.